Hello and welcome to Science Fiction, Race, and Racism. This is a video blogging channel about the most famous and influential works in science fiction and how they deal with issues of race, ethnicity, racism, prejudice, and intolerance. Both the best and the worst, the most groundbreaking and insightful, and the most callous and clueless. Science fiction has a long history of both being opposed to racism, prejudice, and intolerance, but also of conscious or unconscious racism. Sci-fi fans, authors, and works are often said to be above, beyond, incapable of, and far past any prejudice. That is often the appeal of sci-fi, especially the most utopian works. Sometimes a sci-fi setting, story, or theme can be another way to comment upon, critique, or even tear apart prejudice and hatred. For others, sci-fi is pure escapism, a way to get away from such issues. Sometimes this backfires. The most escapist sci-fi work is often the most racist. Sometimes the same three approaches or beliefs coexist within a work of sci-fi, within an author or a sci-fi fan. My name is Carroll. I'm Associate Professor of History at Northern Virginia Community College. I teach American, American Indian, and Latin American history. I've written mostly about wars, veterans, human rights, and genocide. I've also written some science fiction, mostly alternate history, including a sci-fi alternate history book, The Man in Black, the first of a series. The first Battlestar Galactica series came out in 1978. It was mostly a simple-minded space opera, lots of action, and thinly drawn characters, an open attempt at cashing in on Star Wars' enormous popularity. 20th Century Fox even sued Gary Larson and Battlestar Galactica for plagiarism, and they countersued, claiming Star Wars plagiarized the film Silent Running. Both cases were thrown out. The only attempt at any depth in the first series was an obvious Cold War parable. The alien robot species and main villains, the Cylons, were clear stand-ins for Soviets or Russians. The central message of the series was that you can't trust your enemies, especially Soviets, and that attempts at peace were foolish, and the people behind them are outright traitors, the harshest kind of McCarthy-like hysteria. It was so obvious, the Soviet state media Pravda publicly criticized the series. In the series, the evil alien robot race, the Cylons, offer a peace treaty and disarmament, negotiated by a human ambassador, Gaius Baltar. Cylon soldiers are also called centurions. Their heads resemble the helmets of Roman soldiers. That Gaius Baltar has a Roman name was an obvious suggestion he would side with the Cylons. Baltar is another way of saying the name Gutierrez or Gutierrez, meaning the son of Walter. Walter, in turn, means he who rules. The first Battlestar Galactica had many of the same lazy and racist assumptions as the first and second Star Wars trilogies. This is an almost all-white humanity. And no, we don't have the excuse, just the times back then. Minorities on American TV go back to 1950, 28 years before this. In the entire series, there are only 2 token blacks out of over 24 characters, and they remain undeveloped and indistinct. There is no one else not white. No Asians, Arabs, or Latinos, not even as minor characters, guest stars, and not even as extras in this entire all-white universe and humanity. The central premise of the original series was that the remaining survivors of Cylon attacks were looking for other humans. So who are these alleged ancestors of humanity? The introduction talked about brothers of man, namely the Egyptians, Toltecs, and Mayas. But apparently all early humans were not just whites, but either Romans, Greeks, or Israelites, going by their names. The biblical names of characters included Adama, Cain, and Sheba, and the rest of the human characters are Roman and Greek. Apollo, Athena, Tai, Serena, Omega, Rigel, and Cassiopeia. The names of the 14 human colonies are also Greek and Roman. The other revealing detail of the series is the fighter helmets are made to look like Egyptian pharaoh headdresses. This implies chariots of the gods, racist nonsense about ancient aliens, arguing whites were created and made superior beings by aliens from another world. It is also part of a long Hollywood practice of falsehoods equating Egyptians to whites. The series lasted only a year and a half because of its high cost. Most episodes were pure action. Take off and show battle scenes with space fighters fighting. A few plots involved espionage. A second series was launched, Battlestar Galactica 1980, that took place on Earth in the present time, so the cost of episodes could be kept down. Without the space battles, it was dull, and few people watched except to mock silliness like space fighters becoming motorcycles. The original series inspired novelizations of the episodes, plus books written by series star Richard Hatch. There were also comics that first repeated the episodes and then expanded into other storylines. A revived line of comics in the 1990s proved quite popular. Hatch also proposed his continued version of the series in 1998, but nothing came of it. He joined the remake in 2004. The 2004 remake had far less of an all-white humanity. There was one each Black, Latino, and Asian major character in a cast of 8, which is still largely white. The same numbers overall were shown in the crew, and in the civilians in the 12 planets. This still argued for a humanity that is majority white. The crew, guest stars, and extras were roughly equal in proportion ethnically to the main cast. In American terms, this passes for diverse, but it's not accurate compared to the worldwide population. Not at any time in human history. What is interesting that Battlestar Galactica's 2004 creators did construct different races among humans in the 12 colonies. They don't fit with current beliefs on race, and why would they? Instead of the original series, only Greek and Roman and biblical names, the 2004 series has characters with Hebrew, Hindi, Hispanic, Germanic, and East European names on top of the original Greek and Roman name characters. And the names don't match with current ethnic groups. The most obvious example is Commander Adama, played by Edward James Olmos, a Latino with both native and European ancestry, but who has a name that is of Hebrew origin. The series instead discussed bigotry in the 12 colonies as cultural. One character uses the term racist to describe another person who hates Sagittarians, and another character refers to racial comments about Taurans. When people guess about which world others come from, they talk about accent, not appearance. The series received such praise for its handling of race, ethnicity, and human rights, the United Nations hosted a perspective. The series ran from 2004 to 2009, at the height of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It was the first major series, and the first sci-fi series, to be sharply critical of these wars. Quite a few people saw clearly that the Cylons were stand-ins this time not for Soviets, as in the original series, but for Al-Qaeda. Cylons can also be humanoid, and they use subversion, persuasion, spying, and sabotage. Baltar was changed from a vicious traitor to one who betrayed because of his own weaknesses, and did so by mistake. So the series argued warfare by Cylons, and by extension by Arab terrorists and anti-Western nationalists, were somewhat justified by human aggression or Western colonialism. This was an incredibly daring message during the height of war hysteria. But in spite of many things with the series that deserve praise, one difference from the original does not. It's been a decade and a half, so this is not any kind of spoiler. The series ended by showing surviving humans coming to Earth. There they encounter humanoids or ancestors of humans, and they, very bizarrely, resemble Australian Aboriginals. This is a common falsehood showing Aboriginal people as primitive. Aboriginals actually had very advanced agriculture, land management, art, ethics, and morals. The 12 colony survivors are shown spreading out and mixing with these humanoids, and then choosing to destroy their own technology. The story then moves forward 150,000 years, revealing the whole human-Cylon struggle was for 150,000 years in the past. This is yet one more piece of sci-fi falling back on the awful nonsense of ancient aliens, and the implication that all of humanity owes its evolution to mixing caused by aliens. As has been covered in several previous episodes, including the start of this one, this is deeply racist, and it's made worse by the fact that most of Battlestar Galactica's cast and most humans in the 12 colonies are still shown as white European. Another problem with this claim is that fair-skinned Europeans or humans didn't even exist yet. As recently as 8,000 years ago, Europeans had dark skin. Not like modern Africans, but not fair-skinned either. Europeans also had dark curly or wavy hair, not light hair and not straight hair. So again, using the ancient aliens nonsense from the deeply racist book, Chariot to the Gods, written by a deeply racist con artist, turns out to be, not surprisingly, deeply racist in its implications. This is the end of the 12th video. I look forward to your comments and questions. Please repost freely, like, share, and comment. Next video we will discuss the Alien series, Race and Corporate Power. This has been Science Fiction, Race, and Racism, video blog and channel.